Welcome back to Is This a Great Game or What? And wait, hold on. You're hearing us on a Friday for the first time ever. This is so exciting, Dad.
Right. We're going to have 2 podcasts a week. One that lands every Tuesday, and the next is going to land every Friday. This is our first Friday edition of Is This a Great Game or What?
Are you just thinking about the astronauts who just came back from the space station by saying the podcast lands on certain days?
Was that
Remember,
was that the wrong verb?
Drops. You could say drop.
Jeff, as you know, 68 years old. I'm not into the lingo of technology today.
You're the one who called me and said, what are the kids saying when an episode airs? Does it air or does it drop? And so,
All right.
No, Dad,
All right.
you know I'm just pulling your leg. I'm just messing with you. So an episode will land, drop, air, arrive, whatever you want to call it, on Tuesdays and Fridays. It's our very first Friday episode, so thank you for listening and being a part of the show today and being a part of our family. Dad, obviously, we have to talk about the Tokyo series. How cool and amazing was that spectacle in Japan?
A couple of takeaways, Jeff. Japanese baseball is tremendous. The fans there are great. They're sophisticated. They love the sport. The game is played at an exceptionally high level there. And baseball going to Japan to start the season. Look, we all want to open in Cincinnati with a parade, but we don't do that anymore. If you're not going to do that, this is the way to go. Globalize the game. And the fact that the Dodgers especially were so heavy laden with Japanese players. I mean, Yoshi Yamamoto pitched game 1 and he pitched 5 great innings. He's going to be a Cy Young contender this year. And then, of course, Roki Sasaki pitched in game 2 for the Dodgers, and he wasn't particularly good, but the first 2 pitches he threw were at 101 miles an hour. He's got a real good chance to be the rookie of the year in the National League this year. And, of course, Shohei Ohtani, hit a home run in the second game, had a really good series. Just another reminder, Jeff, even though every move he makes, wherever he goes, is chronicled, he still finds a way to rise to the occasion like nobody I've ever seen in baseball, and he did it again in Japan. But it was a great 2-game series in Japan, and just another reminder how deep the Dodgers are in their lineup, in their rotation. I mean, they beat the Cubs twice, and they did it without Mookie Betts and without Freddie Freeman, who were either injured or sick. That's how good the Dodgers are.
They really are incredible. And there was a headline I saw that said, "Can anybody beat the Dodgers?"
Right.
And it's a 162 game season, but you bring up a good point, Dad, with 2 of their main pieces out for the Tokyo series, and they still were able to beat the very good Chicago Cubs team that traveled out to Japan. Now, obviously, we're a baseball podcast. We're recording this on what I believe to be arguably the best day in sports, okay? And we are going to have to hurry this up because it's the first day of the NCAA tournament. It's the round of 64. This is so exciting. And when we release on Friday, it's the second day, which is the second best day in sports because you've got more games in the round of 64. Dad, March Madness is here.
It is, and it's great. And we'll turn this to baseball. I promise you, in every baseball clubhouse in America today, there are sheets going around. Because this is what every player wants to do is fill out his bracket. They will have all sorts of contests within teams, much like the start of the fantasy football season, how huge that is in baseball. Same thing here. John Smoltz used to be a part of John Smoltz, world's most competitive man. And I mean that as a compliment. He used to do the brackets and everything for the Braves a million years ago. And Tom Glavine used to look at him, his own teammate, and said, "John, why are we even doing this? We all know in advance that you're going to win. Everyone else is going to finish somewhere else." That's how good John Smoltz was at predicting basketball. But all over the place, brackets are being filled out. I love March Madness.
Have you filled out a bracket in my bracket challenge
No,
yet, Dad?
and what happened, Jeff, was...
Did you have technical difficulties?
Yes, of course. It asked for a password, which, of course, I don't have.
McKinley is the password. You just had to text me.
It's too late now, and it's just as well. I have other things I have to do. Sorry, Jeff. Yes, worst words in the language. Add a password, and I always forget because I have like 50 of them.
Yeah, well, I'll just tell everybody. In my bracket, I host a bracket challenge every single year on ESPN, and my bracket this year, I chose Florida to win it all.
Wow, there you go.
I picked the Gators. And listen, they always say don't pick with your heart, don't bet with your heart, all that stuff. Duke seems like a really good pick for this year's March Madness. But Dad, as a University of Maryland graduate and as a Syracuse graduate myself, it's just hard to pick the Blue Devils. I'm sorry. I have them in the championship against the Florida Gators and losing to the Gators. I just couldn't pick them to win it all, to be completely honest.
All right. Well, speaking of that, Jeff, my son, challenged me to come up with an all March Madness team, Tim. We've done.
I thought it would be perfect for our first Friday episode, day 2 of the round of 64. And, you started doing these last year, and you would just bring them to the show. And then I started to say, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And 90% of the time, Dad, you say, I already have it. But this time you kind of had to stretch to get into it, right?
So this is a bigger stretch than Willie McCovey. That was his nickname, by the way, Jeff. All right, we're going to start at first base with Duke Sims, former catcher, first baseman. All right. So Duke Sims, by the way, hit 100 major league home runs, and I hope I don't disgust anyone here. He also had the unique ability to throw up on command. So he could just be sitting there in front of you and be able to throw up if he wanted to. Anyone else who wants to throw up has to put their fingers down their throat. He didn't have to do that. So among his many claims to fame, Duke Sims could throw up on command. Second base, Jeff, is my favorite. Hall of Famer Bid McPhee. Second baseman, last guy to play like a full major league season without wearing a glove. That's how far back we go with Bid McPhee. He must have had great hands, Jeff, if he went a whole year without using a glove. But that's the best one I got, Bid McPhee. Okay,
tournament bid. I love that.
Third baseman is Ray Knight, and only because Bobby Knight, was the coach so many years in March Madness, and a tribute to Bobby Knight. By the way, Ray Knight, who was my teammate at ESPN for several years, loved Ray Knight, also played for the Orioles when I covered the team. Hilarious guy, very good player, like a boxer too. He could beat up anyone in the major leagues. He was also married for a while, at least, to Nancy Lopez, the great LPGA Tour golfer. So
really?
And Ray was a great athlete, is a great athlete, and a really good golfer. So I said, did you ever, defeat your wife in a game of golf? And he goes, yeah, I beat her one time. He said, I annoyed her so badly on the course that she walked off after 14 holes because I aggravated her so much. That's the only time I beat her. She quit after 14 holes because she was tired of listening to me.
That's funny. And Dad, Knight, you got like UCF or the Knights, Rutgers or the Scarlet Knights.
Right. There's a lot of ways to go. It's a stretch, Jeff. There are a lot of stretches on this list. My shortstop is Dave Chalk, because when you go, well, if I have to explain these, then they really stink.
Then they're not good. Yeah, we got you.
But you understood that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, one outfielder. I have to look this one up. Ira Seeds, Seeds. Love that. Harlan Poole. I think we all understand
Bracket Poole,
that.
yeah.
Buster Adams is our third outfielder. Of course, I would have used Buster Posey, more famous, but I had Bubbles Hargrave as my catcher, and my pitcher is Devin Sweet. Now, I couldn't find anyone named Ted 16 or anything, so I had to go with Sweet. I think we all understand Sweet has something to do with March
Sweet
Madness.
16. Yeah, you couldn't find Frankie Final.
No, right.
Or Eric Elite.
No March, no Madness. I tried. And if anyone out there has a better March Madness list than me, or anyone that I missed, please send it in. This is so preposterously stupid, but anyone who's got one better than me, I want to hear about it.
Yeah, it's funny. When I told you about this, I pitched it as exactly what you ended up doing. And you had kind of said, oh, well, maybe I'll do players that played in March Madness, right? Who played in the tournament and make the best team possible. And I had said, well, why don't you come up with a team like, Billy Syracuse is his last name. But I didn't have any examples for you, and you did a great job. I'm impressed.
Well, thank you. And we'll do another March Madness related team at the end of March Madness when we have the Final Four and everything else.
Yeah, we actually have a special guest already scheduled and planned, a former long time Division I basketball coach, is a national champion basketball coach. We're not going to say who, but we're going to tell you that in April we have a guest booked for that, and it's going to be really exciting.
Right. And I promise you, even though he's a basketball legend, we might not ask him one basketball question because he also loves baseball. And that's what this podcast is about.
On this date in baseball history, Dad, we get to do this twice a week now, which is really exciting. What do you got for us?
1999, Garth Brooks. I don't know if you know who Garth Brooks is, Jeff. You do a morning show in Philadelphia, music.
Country music.
You're right. Yeah. Country music. No longer do I call it country western music anymore. But Garth Brooks, who, of course, played for the Padres a bunch of times in spring training, actually got a hit on this date in 1999 against Mike Soroka of the White Sox. Now, I'm not sure if this was the time, but I think the way Bruce Bochy told me a story once, he put Garth Brooks into pinch run in a game, and he got picked off by like 8 feet at first base. It wasn't even close. And the umpire, and I'm going to guess, I'm probably wrong, I think it was Frank Pulley, called him safe going back to first. It's an exhibition game. It's Garth Brooks. And he called him safe because he said, my wife loves Garth Brooks. If I had called him out, she might not have spoken to me for the rest of my life. So yes, 1999, Garth Brooks got a hit.
That's incredible. And, I've reached out to his people to try to get him as a guest on this show. So I'm going to send them this episode as well. And he probably remembers that day fondly. So we'll see if we can get Garth Brooks in 2025. That would be a big get. He's kind of the biggest name in country music and one of the biggest. So I'm going to try my best.
All right, good. All right, 1963, Sean Dunston was born, former mainly Cubs shortstop, threw from shortstop he threw it as hard as any shortstop I've ever seen, and he threw it really hard every single time he made a throw from shortstop to first base. In fact, Mark Grace, his first baseman, used to tell him all the time, you don't have to throw it that hard every time you throw it over, because Mark, who was a great defensive first baseman, had trouble catching it sometimes because Sean Dunston just made sure he threw it as hard as he could over first. I asked Sean in retirement. I asked him, I said, Sean, do you miss baseball? And he goes like this, I don't miss the slider. and that's the way most retired players think. I miss the competition, I miss the guys, but I don't miss like a great slider. All right, 1982. Aaron Hill was born. Aaron Hill hit for the cycle twice in a 10-game period. Now let's test your knowledge and your memory, Jeff, from last year when we brought this up at least 5 times. Give me 4 major players in baseball history who never hit for the cycle. If you get this wrong on the first Friday of the year, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Babe Ruth.
Yes.
Hank Aaron.
Yes.
Willie Mays.
Yes.
Barry Bonds.
Yes. You did it. Way to go, Jeff. And last thing, 2002, this is Mason Wynn's birthday, the shortstop for the Cardinals. He was born on this date in 2002. Speaking of a great throwing arm, oh my goodness, Jeff, watch that guy throw someday. And I had a nice chat with him this spring in the Cardinals clubhouse, and somehow roller coasters came up. And you know how scared I am of roller coasters. I'm afraid of heights. I'm not even comfortable being this tall. And I can't go on a roller coaster because anything is too high and moves too quickly. So Mason Wynn goes, no, I'm not doing roller coasters. He said I would throw up, to which I had to explain to him I actually did throw up on a roller coaster once. It was the worst. So twice in the first Friday podcast, we've talked about throwing up. Duke Sims and now me on a roller coaster.
Dad, I thought you threw up on a Ferris wheel on your date in high school.
It's all the same thing. It was called, Jeff, the Scrambler.
Oh,
you
okay.
can only imagine what the Scrambler
I know exactly what,
meant. In and
that
out,
one, Dad,
incredible rate of speed. It was awful.
I would make the argument that a scrambler is more likely to make you throw up than a roller coaster, to be completely honest, because that's just that constant motion.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I didn't mean to be disrespectful when I said the Ferris wheel, because I knew it wasn't a roller coaster, but the Scrambler's no joke. Even who I like going on rides, I wouldn't go on the Scrambler. It'd make me sick too. So I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Well, I have 3 grandchildren. One of them is your child, McKinley, and they're going to ask me someday, Pop, do you want to go on the ride with me? And I'm going to have to say, look, I'll do anything you want, but I'm not going on any sort of scary rides. Never.
Knowing you'll say, let's go back to the gift shop. I'll get you whatever you want.
Right.
That's on this date in baseball history. And coming up next, after a quick break, we've got a Kurkjian Quandary that we need you to answer for us. Ozzie To Orel, the best players from numbers 1 to 55. And then we're going best of all Tim, the best player for each of the franchises. We'll do one franchise a week throughout the season, and then a brand new segment for all of those who are seamheads. That's coming up next. Is this a great game or what? We kick off our Kurkjian Quandary. You can let us know what you think at Great Game or What on social media, or you can obviously go to greatgameorwhat.com and chime in there.
Bobby Valentine told us last year on this podcast about how revered players are in Japan, how rich they are in Japan, how comfortable they are in Japan. They are absolute heroes if they're star players in Japan. And his question to us was, why would they want to come to the United States and play when they have such an amazing life over there? So the Orioles have a Japanese pitcher, Sagano, who is going to be their 5th starter. He was a star over there. So I guess the question is, would you rather be the 5th starter in the United States or potentially a number 1 starter in Japan? Or on the flip side of it, you're an American and you have a chance to go to Japan, be an everyday player, and make let's say the equivalent, I'm guessing, of $8 million a year, or play in the best league ever, the major leagues, make $1 million a year, be a part-time player. What would you do? Would you rather make the money and play every day in a great league, but not the best league, Japan? Or would you rather make $1 million and play part-time in the biggest league, the big league?
That's really tough, because to say that you are the starting shortstop in a sold-out crowd every single night you play in Japan is pretty cool, versus what you're saying is like being a utility guy, coming in on days off kind of thing. I think, though, and call me biased, I think there's nothing like playing Major League Baseball. Now, I've seen the videos. We interviewed Bobby Valentine. Baseball in Japan is next level energy. When Shohei Ohtani hit a home run in his very first at-bat in Tokyo, part of the preseason games they did, that place was insane. That stadium was packed. Everybody is going to be into whoever you are if you're the starting shortstop, right?
Yeah. Every move that Ohtani made when he went back to Japan was chronicled. He would walk out on the field, and it was like the Beatles had come back. Whatever he did, and this is how revered he is, but mostly because he came to the United States and is completely dominated. So I think it's an interesting question.
I definitely think so, because you also got to, if we're going down to family here, if I can make $8 million in Japan, play there 15 years, raise my family, and then be better set for life,
Right. And on a different level, Miles Michaelis pitches for the Cardinals. He's a really smart, really funny guy. And a couple of years ago, I went to London for ESPN to do the game there between the Cubs and the Cardinals. And Miles Michaelis, who was with the Cardinals, told me the story about playing in Japan and what a great cultural experience it was. He said, I can remember, and he played there like 3 years. He said, I can remember like 2 or 3 games vividly, 2 or 3 total that he played in Japan. But he said, I will never forget what the culture was like when we went and visited Hiroshima and other places like that. Now, again, he's a deep thinking, funny, but profound guy.
Yeah.
So let's also factor in what you can learn in life when you go play in Japan.
Yeah. So let us know what you think. You can let us know on Instagram as well, at Great Game or What. You can follow us. We just hit 10,000 followers. Let's make it 20,000 followers right now. If you don't follow us yet on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, you can find us. Is this a great game or what? Now, Dad, we're starting something up again this season, now that we're doing 2 episodes a week. Ozzie To Orel. And this is something that you really wanted to do in our first season, but as I mentioned before, we just didn't have the time doing weekly episodes to put all of this in along with a nice long interview. So this is your opportunity to go the best player at every number from Ozzie to Orel.
55.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and I've done this for years and years and years. This isn't a new bit for me. I did this on Baseball Tonight years ago, but I love it anyway, and it creates, and again, we're not here to start heated arguments and people hating each other at the end. So we're just going to do 2 numbers today. Number 1 is Ozzie Smith from Ozzie To Orel. Ozzie is the greatest defensive shortstop of all time. I don't believe there's even a close second. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I think when you're the greatest defensive shortstop of all time, I think you could make a case that Ozzie Smith is the greatest defensive player of all time at any position. And Jeff, you're too young, but you should have seen him play in his prime. He was a gymnast as a kid. I've never seen anybody dive for a ball and get to his feet quicker than Ozzie Smith. And I still get chills when I think about this. When the Cardinals would open their season at home, they always started with Ozzie Smith ran onto the field first and did a backflip.
Amazing.
And landed at his position at shortstop. That's how the Cardinal season opened. I loved it.
You know, I don't want to challenge you on this, Dad, but we posted you saying Ozzie Smith is going to be, probably the best defensive player of all time because of shortstop and the difficulty. And the only argument people made was how difficult it is to be a catcher.
Yes, well,
that would probably be the only argument you could make, right?
Right, and Johnny Bench might be the greatest defensive player of all time, and Willie Mays, the center fielder, might be the greatest defensive player of all time. I'm just saying there's a debate here, and Ozzie Smith is right in the middle of it.
So that's our number 1 from Ozzie To Orel, and once again, Dad said he doesn't think there's a clear number 2 here, but pick your number 2. Who do you think is the second best number 1 out there?
Right.
Okay.
And Jeff, again, this is so important that we tell our listeners and our viewers, this is my list.
Right.
It's not the list. It's not the correct list. I want your list. I want to hear what others have to say because I'm not saying I'm right about this. I'm just saying I'm making the list, so this is who I think it is. So the greatest number 2 for me is Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter won 5 rings. He won 5 Gold Gloves. He made 14 All-Star teams. You can make a case that the 3 greatest shortstops of all time, number 1 is Honus Wagner for me. And then number 2 is either Cal Ripken or Derek Jeter and Cal Ripken. That's how great a shortstop he was. He had 3,565 hits. That's the 6th most hits in the history of the game. And I know it's corny, Jeff, but Aaron Boone played against Derek Jeter for all those years. Then he played with Derek Jeter for like 3 months. And he said, I thought he was great when I played against him. Then I played with him, and I realized he's even better than I thought he was. He said he would come in after the first at bat, usually let off. He'd come in the dugout, and whether he had a home run or struck out on 3 pitches, he would walk into the dugout and say, this guy's got nothing. we're going to light this guy up. And that was part of the Jeter leadership that was getting his team ready to play. And Buck Martinez, great broadcaster for the Blue Jays and others, told me once when he was the manager of the Blue Jays, he said, Derek Jeter is the captain of the Yankees because you can hear him run to first base every single time. And that message that he sends to the rest of the team and everyone throughout the organization is an important message that we're going to play the game right and we're going to play it hard every day.
So we've got from Ozzie To Orel all this season. So we're going to go, that's 1 and 2. You'll hear more next week on Is This a Great Game or What? But time for Best of All Tim. Not to be confused with Team Tim, but Best of All Tim. We're going to go through each team this season and who is the best player in the history of that team's organization.
Right. So we're going to do the franchise's best player.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's some tremendous debates here. And we're going to say it again. We want you to debate us on this because there are no right or wrong answers. We're going to do the best we can. And if you have a differing opinion, we want to hear it. So, since the Cubs are playing the Dodgers in the first 2 games of the season, we're going to take those 2 teams as our first 2 teams. So, the greatest Cub ever for me is Ernie Banks. Ernie Banks, who has the nickname Mr. Cub. So most people will tell you he's the greatest Cub ever. You know, remember, Jeff, he was a shortstop in the 50s.
Right.
Won back-to-back MVPs in 58, 59 as a shortstop, and eventually moved to first base and played more games at first base than he did at shortstop. He made 14 All-Star teams. He hit over 500 home runs, and he played with a smile on his face all the time. In fact, Billy Williams, I love Billy Williams. Billy Williams and Ernie Banks were teammates for years. Billy Williams, top 3, 4 Cub of all time. And he said, I used to drive to the ballpark with Ernie every day. And then finally I had to say, I can't drive with you anymore. You never stop talking. You're so upbeat and positive about everything. And of course, he had the famous saying, let's play 2. Okay, meaning it's a beautiful day. Let's not just play one game. Let's play 2. So one day in Pittsburgh, it's a beautiful day, and they're playing a doubleheader. And before the first game of the doubleheader, Ernie Banks ducks his head out of the dugout, looks at the beautiful sky, and says, today, let's play 3. That's how much Ernie Banks loved to play the game.
And continuing through the Best of All Tim with the Cubs playing the Dodgers.
Yeah,
this one is a
really
difficult
hard.
one,
it's
Dad.
really hard. It's impossibly hard.
Right out of the gate.
Right.
There
okay.
are
Now
5
look,
guys.
let's be clear. Jackie Robinson is the most important player in the history of baseball, and that will never change.
No.
Ever. He broke the color barrier. He was a great player for 10 years for the Dodgers, one of the greatest second basemen ever, won an MVP, won a Rookie of the Year. But, and this is really difficult, I'm going to say that Sandy Koufax is the greatest Dodger pitcher of all time. He won 3 Cy Young Awards. He won 1 MVP. He won 3 Triple Crowns of pitching. He threw 4 no-hitters. And, Jeff, in his final 4 seasons, he went 97 and 27. And then he retired because his left elbow, his left arm, was killing him. He retired after 4 seasons in which he went 97 and 27.
Wow.
So I'll never forget, I asked Frank Robinson once, this is when I knew all about Sandy Koufax. So I asked Frank Robinson, one of the great confident hitters of all time, I said, how did you do against Bob Gibson? He goes, oh, I hit him well. I said, how'd you do against Juan Marichal? He said, oh, I hit him good. I said, how'd you do against Don Drysdale? He said, oh, I hit him good. I said, how'd you do against Sandy Koufax? He went like this. Nobody could hit that man. So I've got Sandy Koufax as the greatest Dodger ever, and I'm up for a debate on this. Anyone who picks Jackie Robinson, I'm good with you. If you pick Clayton Kershaw, I'm good with you. But when you look at Sandy Koufax's postseason record, it's an absolute joke. He's arguably the greatest starting pitcher in the history of the postseason. That's how dominant he was.
That's two of the best of all, Tim. Cubs and Dodgers. Feel free to chime in, greatgameorwhat.com, or, of course, as I've said before, on our socials, Instagram, X, Facebook, at Great Game or What. So going to 2 days a week of the podcast, we have some special things that are going to be happening on Fridays, including a new segment called I Am A Seamhead, testimonials that we're going to be hearing. And you have a chance as a listener of Is This a Great Game or What? As part of our family, you have a chance to be on our show, right, Dad?
Absolutely. Now, Jeff, let's be clear now. A seamhead is someone who has an unhealthy love of the game, an obsession of the game. I am a proud seamhead. I might even be the captain of the all seamhead team. Remember, Jeff, I cut out every box score of every major league game for 20 consecutive years and taped them into box score books, and I never missed a day. And I think we can all agree that's way more impressive than any streak that Cal Ripken Jr. put together. Remember, Mark Wicker, our dear friend, who is a great writer in Anaheim and other places, decided that a seamhead is defined as someone who has covered a winter ball game. I have done that. Has covered a simulated game. I have done that. Has and has had a conversation with a veteran baseball person who at some point said, no, I saw him in Bakersfield, and then spat tobacco juice on the ground. Okay. If you've done all three of those things, you are a seamhead. But there are many other ways to qualify as a seamhead. And remember, Jeff, 15 years ago, I used to host Baseball Tonight, the Seamhead edition. So this is open to people who just have a love of the game that borders on obsession. And Mark Simon, who used to be one of the great researchers at ESPN, now works for Info Solutions. He loves baseball as much as anyone I've ever met. Diehard Mets fan, and he considers Neil Allen to be his favorite Met of all time. And you've never even heard of Neil Allen. That's the point. So this is Mark Simon, and this is why he's a seamhead.
This is Mark Simon of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I'm a seamhead because I can recite the last out of the last 70 World Series from memory. Whether it's a great player like Jackie Robinson, 1956, Willie McCovey, 1962, or Pete Rose, 1972, or someone less memorable like Mark Lemke, 1996, or Michael Martinez, 2016, I have them all committed to memory. By the way, I was the last out in Little League twice, and it stunk. I still remember the names of the pitchers who struck me out, Tim Murphy and Gilberto Cabañas. If you're out there, know that you sent me on this path of last out knowledge. And that's why I'm a seamhead.
Mark Simon was fantastic.
And Jeff, the point is there are people all across the country who know stuff about baseball that nobody else knows. And it's, I'm not suggesting it's great that you know this stuff, but for anyone to be able to go back 70 years and know who made the last out of every World Series, that is ridiculous. That's why Mark Simon is so weird, but this is why we love Mark Simon and so many others like him.
So we want to open this up to members of our family that listen to Is This a Great Game or What? If you listen to the show and you consider yourself a seamhead, what you're going to do is you're going to reach out to us. You can email jeff@greatgameorwhat.com, jeff@greatgameorwhat.com. Send us a voice note, a voice memo, just like Mark did. But here's the qualifications, right? We want you to keep it tight. 15 to 30 seconds max. Tell us why you're a seamhead, and then end it with, I'm Jeff Kurkjian, and I am a seamhead. So obviously not saying Jeff Kurkjian. You say your own name, and I'm guessing we're going to get flooded with some entries, which is going to be really cool. So we'll try to get to as many, if not the best ones, 15 to 30 seconds max, and end it with your name, and I am a seamhead. And every Friday, Dad, we're going to kind of dive into these different entries and talk about the seamheads that are listening to this show.
Right, Jeff, that's part of this show, part of the allure of this show. We are trying to get to people who love the game like we do.
And very exciting because this is wrapping up our first Friday episode, we're going to be giving you podcasts Tuesdays and Fridays now all throughout the 2025 baseball season. This coming Tuesday, our next episode will feature Adam Dunn. We'll be celebrating real opening day on Tuesday because next Thursday will be opening day. And so he's got some very exciting things that happened in his career on opening day. We'll save that for on Tuesday. Adam Dunn will join us.
One of 15 players to hit 40 or more home runs in a season with 4 or fewer letters in his last name. Wait till I tell him that. He might hang up the phone thinking, you guys are the biggest dopes ever, which is, it's okay to think that way. Love Adam Dunn. He will be hysterically funny on Tuesday, I promise. Only a seamhead would know all 15 guys who hit 40 homers in a season with 4 or fewer letters in their last name.
So we'll see you Tuesday. Thanks for listening. And as always, thanks for being a part of our family.